I have no idea why the SEC would try to go after two groups that are doing everything they can to comply with all the ridiculous regulations that these guys are putting together. And somehow the SEC decides to slap them down. I think we need a new way of thinking at the SEC. And the U.S. has just been very, very slow to figure it out, to regulate it, and to set the right rules and structures so that we can continue to innovate.
Tim, do you think
the U.S. has been the center of innovation for all these years, and all of a sudden we're losing it. We're losing it to all these countries who are a little bit more fleet of foot, and they're coming and they're saying, "Hey, bring your Bitcoin company to our country. We don't have all those ridiculous regulations that are 80-something years old, 83 years old. We have a new set of regulations. They've all been set up for crypto. We know what the rules are, and here they are. And if you're an entrepreneur, this is the way you can play."
Tim,
in the U.S., you don't know how to play.
So we already know in the U.S. and in many other jurisdictions that 3/4 of the market are not ICOs or not what would be called securities. Even in the U.S., Canada, and Taiwan, the three jurisdictions that follow something similar to the Howey test that we've talked about, 3/4 of the market is non-securities. It's just a commodity, a cash crypto. So you'll hear debates about initial coin offerings and what's a security and what's not a security. Relevant and important debate. But for 3/4 of the market, it's not particularly relevant as a legal matter.
And I do wonder, you get Blackrock with Larry Fink coming in on Bitcoin, obviously just, gigantic, one of the world's most successful companies. And I'm sure it's a huge win, but is there also kind of a loss of cool factor when you got a Blackrock who's like, let's do this, let's do that, and you're like, thanks, Dad?
No, it's a moment of validation, right? The crypto industry has been resilient. This is the third crypto winter I personally in Grayscale has weathered through, and to see literally the largest asset manager in the world publicly commit to advancing their crypto efforts only lends to the validity of the asset class and the staying power that it has.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, we know Gary Gensler and Janet Yellen are chess pieces for the NWO. We have Gary Gensler kicking the regulation can down the road, creating all these lawsuits in order to keep the United States behind the emerging markets. And then we have Janet Yellen say, oh, it's no inflation, there's no problem, while we're seeing American companies crumble. And we know the emerging markets was hit by the strong dollar, and that's the reason why they're willing to go over to digital assets. Now we have Tim Draper playing the Hegelian dialectic, and we know he's part of the show, speaking on the SEC and Gary Gensler. And now we have Blackrock coming in along with Fidelity to do a spot Bitcoin ETF. When we know Grayscale has a lawsuit in order to do the spot Bitcoin ETF, and we have the SEC going after Coinbase. So we have these big banks and big funds coming in at the same time. And guys, we know it's all a big distraction. And we know a spot Bitcoin ETF takes a lot of volatility out of the market, and then plus is validation. We already have spot Bitcoin ETFs around the world. It's not like they can't bring it to the U.S. And guys, if you go onto the Fed's website, you see that America is crumbling right in front of our eyes. That's all you have to do is take the time, guys, and look at the numbers. Not only is the consumer crumbling, but we have the small banks crumbling. We have small to medium-sized businesses crumbling. But guys, we know the goal. They want to bring in the machine. Unfortunately, the masses are asleep. And by the time they wake up, the robots, algorithms, and drones would have taken over the economy, and the sheet will be going inside the metaverse. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because they know when it comes to the New World Order, It's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Listen, a bet in Bitcoin can be a great ROI bet.
That's true. Probably better in Bitcoin than in a dollar at this point. But, you make the point that since the Blackrock filed for its Bitcoin ETF, Bitcoin has rallied, 18%? And there's so many others that have rallied. GBTC has closed the discounted net asset value by a lot. I mean, it was 40-something% when BlackRock filed, and now it's in the 20s. All this is basically saying that people think a Bitcoin ETF will be approved. Are you in that camp?
I think there's two components here. So this is all about sentiment, right? BlackRock filing for a Bitcoin ETF is a huge moment. If you recall, 4 years ago, Larry Fink was very skeptical of Bitcoin, as frankly were most CEOs in the financial services business, right? They looked at Bitcoin and they said, oh, it's for gamblers. It's not legitimate. Now filing for an ETF, even if it doesn't get approved, more than anything else, I think is a stamp of approval. It's legitimization from the world's largest asset manager. And whether or not we like to believe it, that does really matter when it comes to sentiment related to Bitcoin and the broader asset class. And sentiment leads to flows. That's what I've always said. If we look at sentiment, when sentiment changes, flows change, and flows drive price.
Does it matter if the Bitcoin ETF applications, if the various ones that have been filed by BlackRock and all the others that have followed, if they get rejected? I mean, does the sentiment still, is it still improved simply by the mere fact that BlackRock was on board and did file for an ETF?
I don't think it's going to be the case. I think what we really need to see here, right, at the end of the day, the story is about flows. At CoinShares, we track flows. Over the last 3 weeks alone, following the BlackRock announcement, we've seen over $500 million of inflows into structured crypto products, ETPs, things like GTC, et cetera. So there are flows that materialize off the back of the news. But at the end of the day, the big question I think everyone should be asking themselves as we head into this second back half of the year and we head into 2024 is, where are these inflows going to come from? And at the end of the day, there are trillions of dollars in tax advantage retirement assets, in investor assets that are currently not really getting into Bitcoin because it's hard to do. As you alluded to, GBTC doesn't always trade at NAV. And there are a lot of structural inefficiencies with the other products out there that perhaps use the CME cash settled futures product. So spot ETF, in my view, is a really critical component of driving more inflows. And at the end of the day, this is a story of inflows and outflows. And without those inflows, I don't think we see a lot of major price catalysts come.
Heavy debt loads, and that's contributed to the highest level of bankruptcies in 13 years. In the first half of this year, 340 U.S. firms filed for bankruptcy, with the majority in consumer discretionary, healthcare, and industrials. Serta Simmons, Silicon Valley Bank, Bed Bath & Beyond, some familiar names on your screen that you recognize. Those are the names topping the list with liabilities of over $1 billion that have filed for bankruptcy this year. And yet, the higher interest rates haven't stopped firms from piling on more debt. According to the Federal Reserve, corporate debt topped $12.7 trillion in Q1 of this year, up almost 30% since Q1 2019. All while many are finding it more difficult to repay that debt. The median interest coverage ratio fell year over year in Q1. And so this ratio is important because it shows how easily a company can pay interest on its outstanding debt, and it helps evaluate a company's financial conditions. So you're seeing, all you got to see on your screen is that the slope is going downwards as of mid last year. And the current tighter capital controls, which could get worse for banks after the SVB collapse, doesn't bode well for any firms looking to refinance.
And some of these companies are going to need refinancing. The banks can afford to be a little bit choosier in doing that. So the question will be, will these companies be able to get the rescue funding that they're going to need?
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust. And we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold. Bitcoin is an international asset.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we could have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get on stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate. Not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.